Hey, happy day, all. It's Monday, June 7th. Happy summer to all y'all. I know there's still some places where the school session is still in. And for those of you that have this final week, I have a friend who's an art teacher, sixth grade art teacher, middle school art teacher, Dan. This is, she says, the toughest week of the year for teachers in Minnesota, here where I am, in Minneapolis. Let us know in the chat where you are, of course. We are experiencing a heat wave, which is lovely and summer feeling, like 95, 99 degrees. These kids are baking in some school. It's like Wednesday's locker clean out day, and the kids still have to wear masks at school to stay safe. And it's just a difficult week. So if you're in one of those weeks, if you're in one of those weeks and you're experiencing that, you're not watching this right now, but maybe you're listening to it later. So congratulations, you survived. And for those of you that, are not experiencing that, give your thanks. Dan's in South Bend, Indiana. Nice to have all of you along with us. So much happening in our world and so much common good to be pursuing. On Mondays, we like to chat a little bit about the news over the weekend, things that are happening in our society, things that we find important and interesting. So we'll do that today. It's going to involve, the changes since COVID is on the drastic decline. Jeff Bezos going to fly in his own death trap to space station or Mars. The fact that no, Donald Trump did not wear his pants backward, and that had to be a news story. We'll talk about immigration and ransomware attacks, all the like. So glad to have you aboard. Thanks. Dan, how's your summer kicking off? You feeling summery?
Feeling very summery. We're experiencing that same heat wave and just got done with school. My wife is a 7th grade social studies teacher, so she experienced that last week of school blues as well. It's just everybody's ready to be done. So it was a wild year, and we made it through, though. So
sad day for many parents, but not as starkly sad as because somebody, people that I know, their kids were sort of on and off school anyway. But summer has this sort of sadness to it, that your kids are back now and they're around you the whole time, and you have lunch to take care of 5 more days a week. But just hang in there. The day of celebration, when the big yellow bus of hope comes driving down the street and takes the little ones to an educational experience somewhere. So hang in there. Hey, a lot of people experience the fear of missing out, Dan, and New York Magazine is saying, we're back. The return of the fear of missing out is alive and well. I've been experiencing a bit of that myself. Maybe it's because summer's coming and I see people out and around, people at concerts, people we know doing live concerts. And you're like, oh, look at all the great stuff that's happening. I forgot that people do wonderful things. They do more than sit around. And, maybe get your friends and band of do-gooders together to go stop a tyrannical president's reelection. But other than that, it's been like a year of real difficulty. And now it's back. The idea that people are out and about. And what are you doing for the summer? And that sounds exciting. And how about that? And not only is there the fear of missing out that I find as a Midwesterner, because weather's such a big deal, not only the fear of missing out of what other people are doing, summertime, every day that goes by, it feels like that's one less day of summer. Like all this hope and expectation that goes into the warm
And if you
months.
didn't go to the beach or make the most of your summer day, boy, you're blowing it.
Yeah. You sat around all morning. It's noon, and you spent it. That's a real. I think that's a real summer kind of experience that a lot of people have. But look, COVID is. I came really close this morning to wanting to say here on the podcast, I'm declaring COVID over in the state of Minnesota. Wow. I mean, it's now down to a point where I think there were like 200 cases. There were tragically in the last, over the weekend, 4 deaths that were reported, all in care facilities. And so the kinds of things that you could almost say, okay, we're ready. I didn't want to go quite that far because, some right-minded person will tell me that's just being cruel to the people that are missing, still missing out on a lot of life because of COVID. But it's I think it's really on the decline, and seems that vaccinations have been the key. Say what you want about those vaccinations. I
Mm-hmm.
think they have knocked out. I think they've knocked out COVID. And if the concern was with COVID that we did all the lockdowns, we did all the distancing, we did all the personal protective gear because we did not want to overwhelm our healthcare system. If you remember a year ago, that was the big push. Bend the arc.
Yep.
Was it bend the arc? Bend
Bend
the
the
curve.
curve.
Bend the curve. Yeah. Bend the arc is a great Jewish organization that works to bend the arc of the moral universe toward
Mm.
justice. But bend the curve, also a really important thing. Bend the curve was what it was all about. And why? Because we didn't want the healthcare system to be overrun.
Mm-hmm.
Been saying this for a long time. There's a lot of good reasons for this, but there's been a sliding rationale for what we do with COVID, right? Then it became don't get sick, and then it moved the rationale. On almost every rationale now, it feels like that by July 4th, we'll be able to declare at least, unless it comes back raging in the fall, which I guess it could with some variant. I think we can say that that COVID is now something we did experience,
Yeah.
and is in the past. Do you feel
Jennifer
do you
says
feel safe now? Yeah.
flatten the curve. I think you're right,
Flatten the
Jennifer.
curve.
That sounds way better.
Flatten the curve.
But yeah, I think
Thanks,
it does
Jennifer, for
feel like
listening
we're
carefully.
finally getting out of the woods, and whether or not we go back to quote normal, we are getting back outside and interacting with other humans, which is nice.
Yeah.
And it feels like the economy is kind of launching back into it's booming pretty well,
It's
and
happening.
jobs are coming back. A lot of good signs, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I was out on a walk this morning, and we have a park near our house that is a little sports complex. And so there's lots of kids soccer today. Kids out, there's like a week-long soccer camp. And so lots of action and activity out there. And I walked by and looked over, and a friend of mine was in her car. Had just dropped her son off and was watching a little bit of his practicing. And so she waved, got out, and just the comfortability of walking up and saying hi and greeting her. And, she's been vaccinated. I've been vaccinated. It just felt so like, okay, this is now something that's, we recognize that it's been a long time. And she was talking about how she was at an event for a going away last night, and was in this room, and was very emotional for this going away. But she said part of what made it emotional was she hadn't been in a room with that number of people in a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
she just was overwhelmed by the physical experience and the lacking of that kind of shared physical experience, which was really, I think that's I hope that's where we find ourselves. I hope that's what we can all lean into, is that
Mm-hmm.
that's where this all leads. And her and I have been friends for a very long time, wearing shirts with the same message. Often on the Mondays in this podcast, I wear the Good Vibes Only t-shirt. She's wearing another shirt, sleeveless, women's cut, totally different design, says Good Vibes Only. I'm just saying, what are the
Universe aligned.
chances?
Yep.
What are the chances? Well, probably the fact that we both shop at Target is the chances were pretty good. That we'd
Chances
be wearing
increase.
your chances increase. But hey, apparently in some places like Mississippi, they're under all kinds of attention and scrutiny because their vaccination rates in Mississippi are way low, like in the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
The governor of Mississippi was on one of the news shows over the weekend, and he was defending the fact. They said, "Well, look, our vaccination numbers are very low." And you can go onto a website and look at where your own county's vaccination numbers are, see how safe you feel. I said, our numbers are very low, and I'm asking everyone to get vaccinated, but also our COVID numbers have totally collapsed. They're also very low. Isn't that an interesting reality?
Mm-hmm.
That even there, where the vaccination numbers in that state are not, are 30 percentage points lower than other places, even they're seeing a decline. So, there's going to be a lot of back and forth about what's caused and not caused the flattening of the curve, and now the straight down, the straight decline of the curve.
Yeah.
Um, so So I'm, at some point we will be able to safely say, when I was in Texas on the Mexico border a week and a half ago, I don't know if we talked about this already, but I was shocked at how many people were wearing masks
Hmm.
everywhere we went, every store, in Target, in every gas station, people walking outside, all wearing masks in Texas. I thought it wouldn't be that way. Back here in Minnesota, like, masks are gone.
Yeah.
I mean, we went into a little ice cream shop that opened on Friday, and it had a sign on the door that said masks required. And people in the shop, the workers, were wearing masks, but nobody else was. And so Shelly asked the owner, said, "Hey, I see there's a mask sign. Should I be wearing my mask?" She said, "Well, we just opened the store on Friday. It's a new store. It just opened. And that sign was up before. We're not really sure what to do. So I think you're fine." Like it was, I don't know. She tried to get her off, tried to get her
Yeah.
ice cream shop open. That's what she was doing. So it feels to me like we're coming to the place where this is going to be done, and we're going to be moving through
Yeah.
into some normalcy of life. Hopefully. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I think an interesting thing now is businesses trying to decide whether or not they'll require employees to be vaccinated. I've been hearing some debate about this. Like the bigger companies, some are, strongly suggesting, others are using incentives, little bonus to get vaccinated. And some are straight up saying you have to get vaccinated. I've heard some colleges say, in order to come back to campus this fall, you have to prove that you were vaccinated, staff and students.
I have a friend who works for Delta Airlines, and he said that Delta's new hiring policy will require that any new hire
Yeah.
has had the vaccine.
People are
And,
sort of grandfathered in, though, right? It's like,
yeah, well, at least right now, it's curious what they're because both vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna, and I think J&J, are all on still a special authorization from the FDA. Once it reaches full authorization, the argument that you don't have to have the vaccine because it's deemed experimental is
Gotcha.
off the table. So apparently this is a thing, and that's why J&J or the vaccine makers are pushing hard right now to get this full approval from the FDA. That's going to be a real game changer, and yeah, that's going to be a thing that it's going to really move us forward. And I know there are people who can't get the vaccine, right, for health reasons, different than the people who are, I guess, choosing not to. And so, I'm hopeful that being a vaccinated person is the internal comparison to wearing an external mask, right? In other words, that even if I did have the virus, it would be so low, my body would fight it off. I would no longer be transmissible, and the virus would no longer be transmissible from me. So it's like wearing a mask. I hope that's the case.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying. That's how it goes. So.
And even though you don't have that outward symbol of you're on Team Science, in your heart that you've been vaccinated.
To get like something right on my
a little tattoo of a mask.
So wear something on your cheek. A little syringe. That'd be really awesome. Hey, Jeff Bezos, he's got his Blue Ocean little project, which is shooting people up to Mars and then up to the space station. He says that he's going to go to space on the first crewed flight himself. Now you could take this. I mean, he's in a no-win situation, right? Because you could say, of course he's going to go. He's just a billionaire guy. Of course, right? This has all been a big Jeff Bezos pat on the back project anyway. He's that kind of guy. So you could say it that way. If he doesn't go, people are like, "Oh, Bezos doesn't think
scared?
that thing is safe at all." That's right. Hey, I'm not. It's like making that when you're a kid, making that dirt bike yourself and jumping off that jump and like, well, I think I'll my brother take that jump first and see if that thing. Works.
He's putting his money where his mouth is on this one, I guess.
And putting his mouth where his money is, I guess you could say. He's going to really could be an awkward statement. But anyway, he's going to get himself in the into the rocket and go along for the ride. So I don't know. Good for you, Jeff Bezos. Hope you're doing something good about it. Hey, another fancy news story that is just I've giggled about it since yesterday. This is an NPR cover that says, as it turns out, Donald Trump was not wearing his pants backward at the weekend rally. And I still just can't help but giggle at the idea. And I looked at all the pictures. So, as we talked about, Dan, the millions of people who must have looked at a news app or saw something on NPR where the news story is actually Trump was not wearing his pants backward at a weekend rally had to say to themselves, was there a question if Donald Trump was wearing his pants backward? And there is a question, especially over the weekend, whether on Saturday night when Donald Trump stepped away from the podium, a number of people were recording, the pants area below his belt seemed to not have a zipper, was very puffed out, and the way that his pants legs then sat looked like it was the seat of the pants on the front. And like a minute long video. It's not like it was a short little clip like saying Joe Biden is not really the president of the United States because there's been no pictures of him in the White House. None of the, it's not like those. It's long. And I looked and I thought, man, this does look like the back of someone's pants. So that rumor got started so significantly and moved around the mocking internet so fast that NPR today had to do a story that said actually Trump is not wearing his pants back.
Yeah, the fact that NPR has to weigh in on this is, I don't know if it's sad state of news agencies. But
I mean, it's been a tough week for the man. You know, failed blogger is now mocked for potentially wearing pants backward. Is just that's a tough run to find yourself in. And look, the wise words from the opening of the Book of Psalms that encourage you not to sit in the seat of the mockers is a really good one. So I don't want to be the mockery person, but this just has me giggling because for whatever reasons, Donald Trump, in my estimation, and I'm no fashion guru, this is not an episode of Queer Eye for the Straight Guy or anything. But in my estimation, Donald Trump's fashion and chosen clothing is so bad. It is just shockingly frumpy, unfitted, and just, I think, looks ridiculous. I think the width of his pants, I think the length of his jacket and his tie, I just think the whole thing is, I don't know. It's not even like it's 1980s fashion. He hasn't moved out of it. I find him just I've always looked very frumpy in his outfit. And I don't understand why a claimed billionaire, maybe millionaire, but certainly able to, have the money to get a tailored suit, why any tailor or people around him is very fashionable. Mm-hmm. Daughter and son-in-law. Now his other two sons, they're not my fashion path. It's just shocking to me. And that he is so self-conscious about so many things, from his hair to his spray tan to his weight to his teeth. Why his clothing is so bad that a real news story could come into play that says, no, actually, Donald Trump was not wearing his pants backward. That they looked so badly, whether it's just the shape of his body or, as I heard someone suggest, that maybe he's wearing some supported underwear, as an older man might need to do on occasion. Whatever the reason, it doesn't have to look like that. Dan, as you said before we came on, he does get to choose his pants, whatever the circumstances. It is. And
Jennifer agrees with you. She says, "How does a self-described billionaire dress so badly?" Because it's a choice. You get to pick your pants every day, and when you're a billionaire, or you get to pick good pants if you want, but.
That is like a life lesson, great line from like some spiritual coach, You get to pick your pants every day.
Ram Dass?
Human being, you get to pick your pants every day. Now, not every one of us can, but if you can, just take that responsibility serious. Pick your pants pick your pants every day. So yeah, he does, and he puts them on, and then you know the guy's looking at the photos, you know the guy's looking in the mirror, you know this is coming. All right, so short of the fact that the internet took off on his fashion gaffes, what he said at that rally again is just bonkers, just seriously bonkers. The fact that he's keeping alive these claims that he's going to be reinstated as the rightful president, that these that the election certifications are still in doubt. I mean, all of this stuff is just it is now really reaching a point where either he truly believes it, which I just would feel so badly if this were the case, like if he really was falling off the emotional psychological rails, where the man who was the former president of the United States cannot believe that more people voted for the other guy than voted for him, is just stunning. And this, Dan, I don't know if you saw this new one. I know we don't have a clip for this, but Mark Meadows, who was the chief of staff, apparently over the weekend, it was reported out that in the final days of the administration, literally asked the Justice Department to look into the claims that Italy used satellites to interfere with the vote counts and to change the votes in the voting machines. That Italy used satellites to change the vote counts in county election voting machines.
And why
states all over
Italy?
the country.
How did Italy get roped into this?
Why Italy? I mean, it is so outrageous that you would just say, like, why even talk about it? It's just wacky, right? Well, it's because the president of the United States asked his chief of staff to use the office of the president to lean on the Department of Justice to open an investigation with the full force of the federal government to determine if they could make provable the claims that Italy used a satellite to interfere with the election. That's even before they tried to put together a campaign to say that if they find paper in Arizona that has a disproportionate amount of bamboo in the paper, then that shows that China shipped in pieces of paper
good grief,
to stick into the machines. So they are all over the place at a level of conspiracy that is just shocking, right? And then the fact that many of these same states are putting into place laws that allow the state legislature to override the certification of an election if they believe that the election was somehow unfair. That really does set up for us to have a constitutional crisis when it comes to the voting process. So this stuff it's wacky, it's silly, it's, does he have his pants on backward? Is he losing his bearings?
But then it gets serious real quick. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Because it's being structured and institutionalized to the detriment of the election process. Like it goes right at the election process. And again, I'll try to talk about Donald Trump every Monday. I actually want to talk about him 0 Mondays. He has been saying in every election he was involved in, every one of them, that if he didn't win or when he didn't win, that the system was rigged.
It was rigged, yeah.
That votes were moved. He said it about not winning the Iowa caucus when he was seeking the nomination, when he literally, he's been using this same thing. And I heard one of his great supporters say the other day, I have no doubt, this is the supporter saying, a member of Congress, a senator, say, I have no doubt that Donald Trump believes that if the election was fairly counted, there's no way he could have lost. He has convinced himself that the only way he could have lost was if the votes that it's not possible that less people voted for him than voted for Joe Biden.
Right.
just convinced of that. That in and of itself should be disqualifying for like being a
Yeah.
political commentator. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So cleansing breath away from Donald Trump. Hey, not everything looks horrible in the Republican world. I'm glad to say it. I've got a couple of quick exceptions here. There are a couple of Congress people from Florida who are pushing hard for old school Republican supported immigration reform.
Yeah.
They're both new. They came in 2020. They knocked off Democrats in Florida. We'd like them to get knocked off again, but at least they're pushing for significant reforms for current immigrants in this country and for future immigrants to come into this country and for asylum seekers and refugees. It's significant. The fact that there's some Republicans, and they're a part of the new breed of Republicans, that are talking about immigration this way is one little glimmer of hope that the GOP immigration agenda actually could see some shifts away from the hardline build the wall hordes of dangerous people coming in the country and going to make you feel unsafe. And as our social media person Britain reminds me regularly, the failed promise from Donald Trump that we were going to end up with a taco truck on every street corner, which would have been really great. That was one of the things,
Is that a threat or a promise? Yeah.
yeah. Remember when it was the bad hombres thing that he said, and they're going to end up with a taco truck and during that debate? That would have been great. He never did build the wall. Certainly didn't build the wall in Texas. I mentioned this last week. I was in Texas.
Mexico definitely didn't pay
There's
for it.
no wall. And they didn't pay for the wall that was never built.
Yeah.
So, but at his campaign rally, the former blogger did say, my great success was the wall that I built. Like in his mind, he built a wall. They replaced some fencing and then added a small amount of a wall that then stopped to the point that people can just walk around it. Yeah. So it's what you would call a half wall, but not half wall vertically, a half wall horizontally. So yeah, does it really count as a wall when there's a partition?
When you can walk
put up
around
a partition.
One end.
Yeah, it's a cubicle. He put up a country cubicle.
Well, this is what's confusing to me, and I guess what's encouraging about this story is it seems like, in the Reagan years, for example, immigration, it was almost a contest between Republicans and Democrats to see who could offer the most compassionate response to immigration. I remember seeing a clip of Reagan during a debate. Maybe it was, I forget who he was debating, but it was like a contest to see who could promise the most for immigrants trying to get into the country. And now it's switched to where when two representatives of the Republican Party say, you know what, maybe we should try to figure this out. It's like a shocking news story that they've broken from their party, basically. How did we get here?
How did we get here? From 1980, when it was Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush in a debate for the nomination. That's right. Two things came out of that. One is this famous clip where they're one-upping each other on who would be better for immigrants, who would allow more immigrants in, who had a more gracious amnesty plan to make current immigrants full citizens. Ultimately, Ronald Reagan won, and Ronald Reagan passed amnesty, which is what gets to the root of the question that you're asking. Where did it go wrong? The one thing Republicans turned against Reagan on, the one piece was amnesty for current, at the time, for current undocumented people. They just think that was a real miss and that should never happen again. He was only baited into it because of this debate with George Bush, who was always a real liberal, and those who hated Bush and didn't support him in 92 and supported Ross Perot and all that whole anti-Bush thing from 1992, from 1988 to 1992 really goes back to all this. So the hyper conservatives were really pushing against Reagan way back then for this one time. And that's actually the point that people like us look at it and say, like, remember when Republicans were saying, what do we have to do? Which
Right.
candidate is going to let more have a more gracious appearance and reality toward immigration? The hardline Republicans, especially the libertarian versions and the Tea Party crowd, those people are like, yeah, we're never letting that happen again. Remember that time the Republicans were debating about it, right?
Soft
It's
on immigration. Yeah.
yeah, it's like when Democrats say like, "God, remember when Joe Biden supported the crime bill? I'm glad he's changed. That's never happening again." Like we have to reverse that.
Mm-hmm.
So that the hardcore part of the Republican Party never went along with the leadership.
Mm.
And then it happened again in 2002 with Bush, in 2004 and 2006. They tried to put this big comprehensive
Right.
push together. Bush was going to sign it. Everything was set up for it. And you know what religious group was the most behind it?
Uh,
Conservative
yeah.
evangelicals wanted immigration reform more than anyone. They were poised and ready and pushing for it, and it didn't happen again. And look, this Biden administration has a chance to do something about this. And if they can partner with two freshman Congress people from Florida to sort of make this thing happen, and you could get some kind of a coalition built.
Mm-hmm.
Around our shop, we're going to be putting some emphasis on immigration this fall. And this week, in fact, we have a thing we're doing with Faith in Action. You're going to see more about it on social media and our email, that you can be involved in a fast for changing the vote that's going to happen on the policy around Vote Common Good. We don't spend as much time telling politicians how to vote on policy. That's what a lot of groups do, and they do really great work. So we join with them whenever we can. What we try to do is to impact the voters and how they think about these issues, because we're voters for the common good, and Vote Common Good, not so much on the policy side. But this idea that when we go to Florida, we're going to get to these people and say, this idea that you Republicans want to support comprehensive immigration inclusion in this country, we're all for you. You can be wrong on a lot of things and right on this one, and let's make sure that this all gets leveraged into something good and something right having come from it, because it's just it has to happen. When anybody who looks at our immigration system and our border practices, no one says to themselves, that's working great.
Right.
No one has for 25 years. And we just keep reinforcing practices that aren't helpful while very good solutions are right there and available.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is like shopping in a full grocery store, and you know where the fruits and vegetable aisle is, and you know where the boxed candy aisle is, and we keep making the boxed candy choice. And the fresh fruits and vegetables for our immigration health are right there. It's not that the answers are not available. It's not that people throw up their hands and go like,
Right.
I don't know where I could eat a healthy diet. I don't know where we'd get good policy and good practice around immigration and border practices. What would we possibly do? No one's saying that. They're saying we know what it looks like. We know what we're doing, and we keep doing the thing that
doesn't work for anybody. I think that's why it's encouraging to see the Biden administration at least trying to tackle some of this. I often hear that, well, we shouldn't be welcoming people into our country. We should help stabilize the other countries to prevent people from coming here. And I think it's kind of a both and, like we can be welcoming and we can support other countries and hopefully make situations better elsewhere. And that's what Vice President Harris is doing on this trip. She's traveling down to Guatemala and some other countries to try to build some bridges there, and we've offered a new round of aid, millions of dollars of aid to Guatemala and other countries. And what I also found interesting is Harris put together a coalition of 12 private companies, from MasterCard to like a yogurt company, to invest in some of these countries. I'm not sure what that will look like in real life, but just the fact that they're trying some things is encouraging.
Sure is. I've spent a lot of my life thinking about Guatemala. I've been going to Guatemala since 1988. and I've gone just about every year and spent a lot of time in that sweet little country. It, like the other Central American countries, it's a small country, right? So it has a small economy, and it's predominantly rural with a major city and then two or three other major regions that are, and the divides between the indigenous peoples and the Spanish descendant people is significant there. Like we know that exists in the United States, but the indigenous peoples of Guatemala really feel out of the political sway
Mm.
from the Spanish descendant people. So there's conflicts in Guatemala. One of the big issues in Guatemala is, will the economy and will the government be stable enough where major corporations will feel comfortable investing in those countries. This is
Mm-hmm.
part of the problem with um, uh, it has been part of the problem with investing enough money into Central American countries, is that corporations just simply say, look, if we're going to be involved in those countries, we're going to do it through surrogate companies and through spin-off companies where we're not liable, and we're never going to really lean in hard. Like Nestle is there and some coffee companies are there, but what that's causing is for the country then to just continue to produce coffee, and it's not good, right? The coffee in Guatemala is great. They can produce enough coffee with a third of the farms that are currently, everyone's moving to do coffee though, right? So
Mm-hmm.
a third of the farms could fill the need, but it's the only place people can sell a crop. It's the only one. So they're flooded then with coffee. Coffee damages the environment. Then there's this series of hurricanes that have come through. So there's a number of cascading issues
Yep.
that have piled on. So what Vice President Harris is doing there is really important, as you say. Like it's really it really matters to try to leverage some companies to start to engage with the governments and with the factions inside of Guatemala to build a sense of economic stability in a country that operates with a very small currency and and a very unstable economic and political system. And that's not only true in Guatemala, that's true in Honduras, that's true in El Salvador,
Mm-hmm.
it's true in Nicaragua. Costa Rica, which is the other country that's in, is a little different because it's really driven by U.S. dollars around tourism. Like Costa Rica is
Mm-hmm.
just a little, it's a little different than the others. But Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, they all are struggling with this same bit. And it surprised me, and I'm no expert on what we call Central America, but in the European Union, they went to a common currency so that you would have some leverage of buying power,
Mm-hmm.
right? Each one of those countries operates their own currency, operates their own banks, operates their own full infrastructure. That's really hard to do. Imagine any state in this country that's not one of the top five having to run its own economy top to bottom, your own military, your own currency,
Right.
your own Federal Reserve, like your everything. And you got a country of 5 million people. It's really, really hard to do, unless you're,
Mm-hmm.
some of the Scandinavian countries that have all the oil money. It just becomes an increasingly difficult thing. So there's some major, major changes. But of all the time I've spent in Guatemala, rarely have I met anyone who's like, what I want to do is move to the US.
Hmm.
I, people say, I would love to come and visit. I have family members there. I love Guatemala. I'm staying in Guatemala. Like this idea that we have in our minds that everyone wants to come to the US. That's one of the myths that we just have
Yeah.
to rid ourselves of. Yes, there are people from Guatemala that are coming. Yes, they're being smuggled across Mexico by people in trucks and walking, 1,000 miles and all. Not because they wake up every day and say, oh, I can't wait to get to Dallas, Texas. It's because whatever's happening for their life in Guatemala at that moment is
Mm-hmm.
so difficult. They're going to give up their family. They're going to give up their heritage. They're going to give up the land that they know. They're going to give up the culture that they know to make way to try to save someone from some outcome that's even worse.
Right.
So yeah, it's not like these are, as the former president and failed blogger would call them, S-hole countries that nobody wants to live in. That's not true at all.
Mm-hmm.
People love their life in Guatemala, and want to live there.
Right.
So if
Like
someone's seeking
history and
refugee,
heritage and family and yeah, no one wants to leave home like that.
yeah, anywhere. Most people don't even if they live in the United States, you don't want to leave the state that you're in or the region, right? Like this is how people are. So we have this notion that boy, if our immigration policies and asylum seeking granting is somehow not so restrictive, we're just going to be flooded. Again, the myth that has to go away. That's
Mhm.
just not true. Especially if you gave people the chance to work here and to return home at other times and to come and go.
Yeah.
Some people would stay, some people would come and go, some people would just go home for 10 or 15 years and come back later. Like if we created a border that was a swinging door that people could
Mhm.
go through, otherwise known as open borders, if you had this movement that was allowed to happen without serious restriction, you could test all of this and things would be better.
Yeah.
And it's good that um, Kamala Harris is there. Um, and hopefully, I've been going to Guatemala for like 30 years or something. And it has not gotten measurably better in a lot of those issues. So
Hmm.
there's some deep struggles that are inside that country that have continued to make it difficult for major investment to be in Guatemala. And hopefully this administration can really get the U.S. government supporting and behind it.
Yeah.
Now, a neighboring place, El Salvador, where I've spent just a bit of time, so I only know a little bit about it, has a new president who's a bit of a hipster. I think he's 39 years old, baseball hat wearing guy,
Pretty cool
and
look.
got a great look for El Salvador. And as the article refers to him, um, from I think from I don't know where we got this article, but refers to him as a wannabe autocrat. So he's one of those guys and likes to use Twitter. And but he's sharp dressing, so he I guess moves away from the failed blogger. But he has said that he's made a big announcement that El Salvador, which has been a country that has struggled with criminality from top to bottom. There's a civil war that's been raging for years and has been going on. They've been doing everything they can to root out corruption in El Salvador with more success sometimes than others. Been in some difficult situations on this. He says they're going to be the first country to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender.
That's interesting.
Dan,
That is
Dan,
very interesting.
look, I think Bitcoin is adorable for people that have excess money and all the cryptos. They have money that they want to make and that they're going to sort of make an investment like buying a Beanie Baby and selling it off later to a collector who wants one or those NFTs or whatever. Like, sure, nothing wrong with cryptocurrency as a chance for people to make some money and do some investment and figure all this stuff out. The fact that the basis of Bitcoin and many of the other cryptos is that it is private, untraceable transactions, that's a selling feature, that is a danger feature. Look, the only reason ransomware, which is a huge problem right now, and if you've wondered, like, why has ransomware taken off the way it's taken off in the last few years, right? We were always worried about always worried about cybersecurity and all this business. The reason the Biden administration and others are leaning into it so hard right now, cyber attacks, is because they shut down gas on the East Coast. They
Right.
shut down a beef processing plant. So went after like gasoline and hamburgers. And there were like 700,000 complaints last year to the FBI about cryptocurrency, about cyber uh, uh, attacks from
Mm-hmm.
U.S. People to the FBI. 700,000 or more, the FBI says. Lots of complaints. It's
Yeah.
happening all the time. What makes it possible is that they demand payment in cryptocurrency.
Hmm.
Whatever benefits there are from cryptocurrency, the fact that it is the primary choice of tender for
For
criminals
criminals.
and that the majority of dollars exchanged via cryptocurrency are in definably illegal acts, and I'm not just talking about people buying marijuana, which was one of the things people were doing with it before marijuana was legalized in a lot of places, and still is a place because you can't use federal dollars to buy marijuana, so you can use crypto. I'm not talking about sort of that level of pettiness. We're talking about major extortion
Mm-hmm.
and shutting down whole networks because they're going to be paid $5 million in cryptocurrency. Like at some point, our federal government has to say, if we can't get people to update their security and we can't get Russia to crack down on cyber criminals, maybe the only way to go after this is to stop the legal transaction, because
Mm.
any other illegal transaction that goes on, one of the resources that the federal government has to use to put an end to that, like wire fraud or scamming someone, is they will come in and seize your bank account. They
Mm-hmm.
know you did it. They will take your money, and they can trace it all. That's why
Right.
if you've ever had to write a cashier's check for $10,000 or more, like to buy a house, you got to fill out all this paperwork and say who you are, because they're like, why are you just roaming around with more than $10,000? Right? You fly into another country and they're like, are you carrying more than $10,000 in US
Right.
currency? Because they're like, we track that stuff. That's how we keep track of criminality. Cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, that's one of its primary uses, is to avoid detection.
Yeah, I
It's
feel
not
like the
about,
cat's out of the bag though. There's no
well,
going back from here. I feel like
oh,
we have
there's
to
going
figure
back.
out how to harness some of this stuff rather than, I mean, you're not going to be able to just turn off the water spout, you know?
Yeah, you can. You can make it illegal. Look, there is no reason that the United States can't say that cryptocurrency can't be, or it needs to be authorized and trackable as a currency to be spent in the United States. Like, yes, you absolutely could do it. They put sanctions on how people spend their money, like on different countries. So there's sanctions on Iran. There's sanctions on Russia. So companies can't do business with companies in Iran. And if they
Mm-hmm.
do, then they're penalized.
Right.
You can crack down on cryptocurrencies. Now, we may decide we don't want to. We may decide that it's better to manage it than to shut it down. But the use of the function of cryptocurrencies in ransomware is essential. There is no ransomware system like there is now, where I don't know if you saw over the weekend, but they released some of the interactions between the crypto criminal or the cyber criminals and the companies.
Mm.
And there was one company that's like is a nonprofit, and they got hacked into, and the people asked them for, $700,000 to free up their network again. And the people wrote to him in an email and said, hey man, we're like a nonprofit. All we're doing is helping people. We don't have this kind of money. The person wrote back and said, oh, send us your documents showing that you're a nonprofit, and we'll release this to you. Yeah. Yeah. And then another one said, hey, I checked with our financial person. If we pay you, $500,000, $600,000, we're not going to make payroll. The person said, send us your financials. And if that's the case, we'll renegotiate the price. I'm not kidding you. These criminals, they're just like, you're locked up now. Here's how this is going to go. And then you negotiate, and then you
Mm-hmm.
make a payment. Like, these are people that are otherwise acting reasonably. And all of this is happening in a very deliberate and determined way.
Yeah.
All happening inside of an economic system that the US government then can't track globally.
Right.
No, and it roots to this. So, yes,
But I
should
mean, the
we move
U.S.
away
can
from
do
cryptos?
things, but then El Salvador is going to be like, hey, just do your dirty business from here, you know?
Yeah, right. So then, but
And you don't
again,
even have to physically be there. You just track it through El
fair
Salvador or
enough.
whatever.
But yeah, and look, if this happened, and if the US said, because of cybersecurity issues, there's going to be a crackdown on cryptocurrencies, that would collapse the cryptocurrency markets. Like if you're going to take the United States buying power out of that, it's well, and even if it didn't collapse it, if you have to do major workarounds and not just go download the Robinhood app and then transfer your money into some
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin on the same day and then send it to a Russian a hacker group. We've just made it so easy to pay this stuff that my point is that's part of the reason that this cyber attacks are on the rise. And I think one of the ways you get after it is to use the power of the federal government to manage fiscal issues if U.S. dollars are going to be used. I guess if someone wants to take gold and then they want to turn it into El Salvadorian dollars and then get in, like if that's what it is, and yeah, you can do that, but you're not going to like hit up some little nonprofit and attack 700,000 networks
Mm-hmm.
while you're fishing for people that you can get in and wreak them havoc. So I think El Salvador it's just awfully curious that a country that has struggled is now going to be the first one in struggled with a fair economic and political system is now going to be the first one into the cryptocurrency Bitcoin world. And maybe I'm one of these just a little too old fashioned, but when the primary motivation is not the common good, the primary motivation is to keep it untrackable. That's probably not a great feature to a currency. and we're looking to have our economist Fadl on because I wanted to talk about the reason the U.S. dollar is powerful is because the federal government uses it as an instrument to control inflation and to boost the economy and so on. If you have a currency that has no government behind it, it loses the purpose of a currency.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the just philosophical arguments that a lot of people, and we should do a full cryptocurrency session sometime. But the people that are big into crypto are like, you want it to be free from government interference. And I think that's exactly the wrong reason to have a currency. Like if it's a collectible, baseball cards, art, cars,
an
airplanes,
investment,
Beanie Babies. Yes. They're talking about it as a financial instrument, as an alternative source of payment. That's different than it's a stock or something that you own value in something, or you own a bond, or like that are all based on the US dollar. This is not based on the US dollar or on the euro. It's based on itself. It is a currency. So anyway, I think there's just a lot around this.
Yeah.
I'm a good vibes only guy, so I don't want there being I don't want there being some kind of.
I'm feeling some bad vibes from this.
Are you? I'm just trying to save America. I'm just trying to save El Salvador. That's all this is. All right. Hey, lots of things in the little chat that sort of stopped once we got into cryptocurrency. Because here's the other thing: 95% of the people that I talk to, and I did a poll on this, so I know the numbers just above 95%. 95% of the people that I've talked to about this, they have no idea what cryptocurrency is or how it works. And like my crypto friends do. Got some people, that are into it. Even the ones that I know who, like, hey, I bought a Dogecoin for like $200 and the thing's worth 12 grand. This is unbelievable what's happened. They don't know how cryptocurrencies work and what blockchain means and what blockchain.
I've been told multiple times what it means, and I still don't really understand it.
Yeah. Well, it's how criminals exchange dollars with each other, so that's untraceable. So just always remind yourself.
That's all you need to know.
It's all that it is. It's nothing more than that. Right.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on your end of what's important from?
Well, I feel like we could spend a whole episode just on this critical race theory headlines and how this is. It's become the new like boogeyman catchphrase that Republicans are using as a scare tactic, but no one can really tell me what it is. You
Yes,
know, like
right. It's a catch-all phrase, critical
yeah,
race theory. Yeah. But what we know critical race, well, here's what I think. I think we critical race theory generally refers to the understanding of American history through the lens that systemic built-in bias and racism against especially black people in this country is indelible, is happening right now, and
right.
needs to be contended with.
Yeah.
In other words, systemic racism is a real thing.
But if you
Mike
say it like
Pence,
that, then then
well,
it's
Mike
harder to
Pence in
argue
his,
against.
yeah, well, I thought so too. But here's the thing: Mike Pence in his speech over the weekend, or last
Yeah,
week,
so
when he
there's no
said,
such thing.
and that's what Marjorie Taylor Greene, and that's what Boebert, and these others in Congress, and Matt Gaetz are all saying is systemic racism is not real. America is not a racist country. America is an anti-racist country, always has been, always will be, and you cannot claim that this country has a race problem, has a systemic race problem. There's individual bad apples who are just mean, bad people, but
Hmm.
that brand of Republicans, from Mike Pence all the way through the people in the House, and Ron Johnson in the Senate, they are saying our stance on this issue of racism is it is not systemic, it is not built into the system, and that's the fight that we want to have. They literally
Yeah.
want to have that fight. So where people like
It's
us
like,
are
do
like,
you want to look at the
no one can.
Constitution? Like,
I know, like no one can argue that it's systemic. You could argue, are we overcoming the systemic racial biases that exist? That's an argument. But people like us would say, but it's there, right? I mean, like you
yeah.
grant that it's there. They're like, no, I do not grant that it's there. It's not real. You're trying to tell children that it's real, but it's not.
Hmm.
They're saying this is Santa Claus, this is Sasquatch, this is
Right.
the Loch Ness monster. It's just not true. Sure, your mythologies are built around it, and people are out hunting for it all the time, and they're seeing it, but it's not true. That's
Hmm.
what this brand of Republicans are actually saying. And when they say critical race theory, it's short for this new incursion, this 1619 project
Right.
of that's what really set the course for America. So the battle going forward, they're not taking the George Floyd inspired revolution and reckoning, George Floyd murder reckoning, to say we're going to deal with race in this country. They're saying we're going to fight over that.
Yeah.
That's where the current Republican Party is.
That's the hill. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. It's hard to wrap your mind around.
I mean, this is what Tim Scott, the senator, said after Joe Biden's, address to Congress, when he came up and said, America isn't systemically racist. Sure, there's some bigotry, but no, that's going to be their tack.
Hmm.
Systemic racism is not real.
Never was, never will be.
This
Yeah.
is the greatest country God's ever created.
Hmm.
God bless you all.
Yeah, I feel like we should do a full hour on that at some
Let's
point.
do it. Let's do it Thursday. All right. Thanks all. Glad to have you aboard today. Thanks for, doing a recap of the news. We're back tomorrow. Tuesdays where we talk about faith or talk about politics. Wednesday, we talk about faith. Thursday, we talk about important issues. And on Friday, it's science and economics. So good to see you, Dan, and common good day to all of you.
We'll see y'all soon.